You want to be able to build a career as a consultant, as someone who can work when they need to, rather than having to work 5 days a week, right? The whole beauty of going into this is the fact that you create your own rulebook. You build your lifestyle. There shouldn't be a goal that's a number. It should be a goal that is a lifestyle.
Welcome to another episode of MozPod. My name is Chima Meje, your host, and our guest today is Luke Carthy. Luke is a seasoned e-commerce growth consultant and international speaker, delivering triple-digit growth for e-commerce brands. His expertise spans across CRO, analytics, and SEO disciplines. Luke has worked with D2C and B2B verticals, including Cart, Paperchase, Samsung, and Schneider Electric. So he knows a thing or two about getting C-suite buy-in and delivering smart, scalable e-commerce growth. Luke also has the most glowed-up skin in the industry. Today, we're talking about how to become a successful SEO consultant. If you find anything interesting from this episode, please use the hashtag MozPod to tag us and share your insights on social media. Luke, thank you so much for joining me.
That's awesome, man. Happy to be here. It's incredible.
All right, Luke, what motivated you to transition into a career as an SEO consultant, and what was the defining moment for you in making that decision?
All right. So, little secret for you. Full circle. Believe it or not, the decision happened after MozCon in 2019.
Oh, damn.
Which is really interesting. So I think that was like pinnacle of presentation, right? So done lots of little ones, MozCon, flew to the US, did that, stepped off stage, and I had a conversation with a good few people from some really big brands. And that was the point where I realized, wow, like I have the opportunity now to take it to the next level. And I want to be able to be 100% accountable for my own success. And that was the key point where I decided, right, now's the time to go solo. So yeah, MozCon 2019. And main reason is just want more freedom. I need to be more in control of my time. I've got had a young family, still have a young family, and just really wanted to perfect the work-life balance. And I knew I wasn't going to get there by working, for me personally, in the kind of corporate wheelhouse, so.
Okay, first, for someone who's just starting their journey as an SEO consultant, what foundational steps would you recommend for setting up your practice?
All right, great question. So I'm going to say self-discipline is probably one of the most important factors, because of course, everything is on your own clock. So the time you wake up, the time you go to sleep, the things that you do, the time you give yourself to learn, they're all critical components. So think about your routine and your structure. And I think it's really important to really understand and work when you work best. So if you're the kind of person who works more effectively in the afternoon or the evening, do all your meetings in the morning, right? If you're the opposite, get your meetings out of the way at the opposite end of the day, but just understand and learn what kind of environment that you want to work in. Do you want to be at home? Do you want to be in co-working space? Do you want to be in the pub? Like, it's your space. There are no rules and you get to create your own, but you've got to also be your own best boss. There is nothing worse than being self-employed and actually just feeling like you've been horrible to yourself. So look after yourself. It's really important.
Finding clients is often the first major hurdle. What strategies have worked best for you in attracting your initial clients?
All right. This is a good question. And I've spoken to so many people about going solo, and I've spoken to people as well before I did this and kind of went on my own and kind of asked for this advice. So for me, I think the big thing really is get yourself out there in whatever capacity you feel comfortable. Go and speak, go to meetups, network, create your own blog, write things, film some video, just be present, right? And I think that is an important foundation, not only to get clients, but to build brand, for people to understand who you are. And as they say, there's a famous saying, if they build it, they'll come. Now, I don't believe that that's the case. I think you have to put the work in. But like, speak to their employers, right? Speak to people that you used to work with in the past. Go to your ex kind of employer before you kind of left and think about how that's going to work. So true story, my first ever client was my previous employer. So I handed him a notice, and in the exact same conversation, we ended up working together. But yeah, you've just got to leverage and find every opportunity to talk and put your voice out there.
Yeah, start with what you already have before you start looking for what you don't have.
I love that. Yeah, exactly.
How important is it to niche down in SEO, and how did you identify your niche?
Okay, good question. So niching down is an interesting one. Do I think it's critical? No. But what I do think is that you have to make it easy for people to talk about what you do. And if you don't have a defining thing, USP, it makes it difficult to say, Luke, or this person is good at this, right? So it doesn't have to be, I mean, for me, it's ecom. For other people, it could be creative, it could be technical, it could be content, whatever it is. But it doesn't really have to be a niche. It just has to be something that people can think that name is attributed to that. And that could be a persona, it could be a personality trait. But that is what you need to communicate. And I think you do that via your content, your messaging, and really just taking care of being consistent, right? But how I kind of got into my first, how I understood that I wanted to do ecom. So it started for me at the age of 16.
Really?
And I'd left school. Yeah. So I started
really
a business
young.
Super young, man. I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted to buy a car, and I thought about the quickest way to get there. So my first job was in the world of sales. I worked at Currys. And for people who are listening outside the UK, it's like Best Buy, like an electrical retailer, right? And I was working, to kind of show my age now, the depth, you know, the big TVs, the big back CRT TVs, I was selling those at the point where the flat screens were coming in. So HDMI cables had just hit the market, and they were silly money, like £60 for a meter. So I went to Alibaba, bought some stock, and I started selling these on eBay, and quickly realized that this was a high margin opportunity. Got into kind of looking at how to improve performance, optimizing keywords, thinking about refining certain things, and started to fall in love with beating the algorithm and optimizing my listings to sell more. So I knew from very early on that sales, retail, ecom, and digital was really what I wanted to do. So I've been in ecom for longer than I've probably been in digital marketing, to be honest, which is interesting.
This is so similar to Joshua George's story. He also started out like selling stuff on eBay, and he's like, oh, how do I optimize this? Or how do I like sell directly? That kind of thing. It's very fascinating to see the different ways that people come into the SEO industry.
Yeah.
Can you share how you've leveraged personal branding to enhance your visibility and attract organic leads?
All right. I actually think personal branding is probably one of the most important components of consulting, right? And whether you work for an agency, whether you work in-house, whether you work somewhere else, having a personal brand is massive, because you need to be able to carry yourself and be able to justify and convince people in the business. So like a personal brand works really well in terms of sales, because people remember you. So people always think of me in the industry, or I like to believe that this is the case, is, oh, Luke, he's ecom. And that kind of stems SEO, CRO, analytics, strategy. But then on top of that, it's also kind of a sense of kudos. So if you're going to charge a certain amount of money, and if you're saying something incredibly controversial that you want to move forward in the business, you have to be confident. You have to have a strong personal brand. You have to be authoritative and an expert. So it's incredible. And I guess demonstrating personal brand, just to kind of talk about that, I think it's all about consistency. So how you write, how you speak, how you communicate to people, how you present yourself on, like, you know, MozPod. These are all things that contribute to your personal brand. So be consistent, be intentful. I think it's massive. Be personable, you know?
So you do these things where you write tear downs, highlighting areas where e-commerce brands can improve SEO performance. I really like it. I spend a lot of time reading them because I just really enjoy it. How has this approach helped you stand out and attract high-value clients?
Good question. So I do this because I think for me, I think people always assume that big companies do things right all of the time, right? And we've all been in the workplace, whether you work in-house or you work for an agency, where, yeah, but Amazon does it like this. Yeah, but eBay does it like that. Yeah, but Clark's does it like this, right? And just because they're big corporations doesn't mean they've got everything right. And sometimes it resonates a heck of a lot better to go for a household brand that people understand and highlight things that they could do better. Now, there's a fine line between kind of like critique and unnecessary criticism. So it has to come from a point of thinking about, right, this is something that's wrong, but also here's how you fix it, and being constructive in the way that you present it. But I think for me, the reason why it works is because, as I say, it's kind of like going against the understanding that because you're big means that everyone's doing it right. And that's not always the case. And real examples really help sell stories. If I want to convince a client to do something, being able to justify and explain a problem and a solution really helps. So I just made that public and it kind of stuck.
Have you gotten any clients from publishing these teardowns?
I
have to ask.
I actually have, yeah. So I did a video. This was some years back now. Unfortunately, the brand is no longer trading, at least in the same way it was. And this was Paperchase. So I did a video, I think, during lockdown, talking about Paperchase's website migration and how it looked like huge traffic dive, lots of broken redirects, and things were just starting to fall apart. So I spoke about that. And then I reached out on LinkedIn and sent it to someone senior at Paperchase. And actually a good friend of mine who's in the industry was working with a client at the same time. And she said, look, I've seen your video. That is incredible. We need to have you in the business. And that was how I landed that client. So yeah, just kind of been, again, constructive, not offensive, and saying, this is the problem. This is the solution. This is the difference it could potentially have. I think it's important. I
think that's something that many SEOs fail to understand, is that you can't be overly criticizing a business that you want to hire you, because you're going to hurt someone's feelings. There are people, real people working behind these brands.
There's jobs, man.
And when you go and start like tearing them down in a way that I think most of the time is not even constructive, I personally would not hire you if I was working at that company or head of SEO or content at that company. Never.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And of course, you have to go into this assuming that you're not going to get hired. So you have to assume that you're going to burn any bridges that you have. So I think the most recent one was Poundland. I think I tore into those guys about how they launched their e-com venture. Does that mean I'm going to get hired by Poundland at some point? Maybe. But there's a greater chance that I won't, because I have You've hurt
feelings.
Yeah, I've hurt feelings. But I think you might lose Poundland, but you may win another client in the
that
same
is the
situation.
Idea. The idea is to get someone similar to Poundland who that solution would also be applicable to.
Yeah.
And they see themselves in that solution and they're like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Let's hire him to give us this thing that he's proposing for Poundland.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Hot take. What is one thing that frustrates you the most about SEO or the industry? Hold nothing back.
Oh, all right. This is a therapy session. All right, cool. For me, it's that there is constant, it's kind of a beautiful thing. It's controversial, but it's like there is constant comparison and constant, this is the right way. No, this is the right way. And it's almost like a clash of egos, opinion. I've had success doing it like this, so therefore I'm right, versus someone else. And it's normally people who are egotistical, big in the game, quote unquote. And I hate it, because there is more than one way to make something work, right? And that's not necessarily just SEO, that is in the world that we live in, right? So why should one way, if it gets the end result, it gets the end result. And there's one particular one this week, it's crazy. It's all on Twitter. People are just getting...
What is it? Everybody's talking about it, but I don't know what it is. What is the tea? Right. Tell me.
I'm not going to do it, because I've got a person is a good friend of mine, and I know this is going out, but...
You're not fun, Luke.
There are two kind of like really well-seasoned people in the industry who are going head to head right now. And
okay, after this episode, I'm going to get the tea from Luke.
We'll go offline, right? But for me, it's a shame, because they're both right. And like the whole thing about SEO, it's almost arguably an engineering / art form, right? If you think about it this way, everybody's manufactures cars, right? Lots of different brands, and every single brand of car does something different. If there was only one way to do something, we'd only have one car that everybody drives. So we should allow creative freedom. We should allow people to have opinions, and we should allow people to comfortably talk about what it is that they want to do. I hate the kind of shaming and the knocking down. And, when you're at conferences and you're talking about something and someone will say to you, oh, excuse me, can I just ask you a question about this? And really what's happening is they're about to tell you how you should do it. It's infuriating. And it's normally men that do it.
Look, that conference one, it happened at the last Brighton SEO.
Yeah.
And I think it was a female that was presenting.
Yes.
And somebody stood up in the middle of the presentation she was giving to ask a fucking question that was inconsequential.
Yeah, see, that's frustrating.
And she came on Twitter to talk about it, and people were livid because this dude could have waited until after, but he just had to show up himself and raise up his hand. And that thing just kills what you've prepared. It just kills your mojo. Like, how do you even get back into giving an impactful presentation when somebody has caught you up in the middle? So I totally get that.
Yeah. And it ruins that person's confidence.
Yeah.
But hopefully that person's just like, you know what, that person.
Good thing she's not a first-time speaker, so she's able to rally. But imagine if it was a first-time speaker.
It's
I
heartbreaking.
won't even want to jump on a stage again, like ever.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Okay.
So that I hate.
All right, cool. Content creation is key to demonstrating expertise. How do you consistently come up with content ideas that resonate with your target audience?
All right, this is an interesting one because I've refined this over the years. When I first started consulting, I used to kind of create a list, a moment, an hour or something, just to think about all the ideas I want to write, and it was shit, to be frank. It didn't work very well. So for me, I come up with ideas based upon a problem that I will either talk about with a client, I come across at a conference, or something that I'm working on and have a solution for. So it's kind of like ad hoc, as and when an idea comes, let's go write about it. So that for example, the Poundland one, I didn't specifically think, right, I'm going to go through all the high street retailers in the UK now. Like, it was just a thing that I saw. And I thought, right, I'm going to write about this. Like the ASOS thing. I don't know if you've seen it. ASOS, sorry. It is Thorntons. They completely disallowed their entire website via robots.txt, and it blew up on Twitter. That's the sort of thing I'd normally love to dive into. So it's just a case of living, breathing, being in that situation and thinking, I should write about this. And one of the more successful ones, I think, was like discontinued products. I think that was what I spoke about at a conference a couple of years back. And even now, to this day, I have people who inquire on my site or reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn and say, "Hey, you're the discontinued products guy, right? Can you help us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." But that was just the thing I was dealing with, and I thought I should talk about it.
All my best ideas come 2 times, in the shower and just before bed. I hate it. Hate it.
And then you got to wake up and write that. Yeah, I hear.
All right. One thing I struggle with is finding time to write content for my website, especially when I'm too busy working on clients' projects. This is referring back to when I was a freelancer.
Okay.
How do you even do it? Like, how, Luke?
All right. So it's not a perfect science, but I set aside 2 days every week to do certain things, a Monday and a Friday. So a Monday I have as my marketing day, and my marketing day is thinking about what is it I've looked at the last month or so that I've found frustrating or I found a solution to that I can write about. And I'll go away and write that piece of content. So that's on a Monday. Of course, it's not a perfect science because sometimes you get an email you've got to jump on. Sometimes, client calls happen. But a Monday's for that. And then a Friday is what I like to call a development day. And that can be where I learn certain things. There's something that I really want to understand. For me recently, it's kind of been custom GPTs and looking at that. And it just allows me to switch off, think a little bit less about work and think more about self-development. So that's how I do it. I just simply ring fence in my calendar 2 days every week where I prioritize writing. But I haven't always got it right because there's been about a year period, I think it might have been last year, where I wrote or published absolutely nothing because I was just too busy with client work. But I think the point is, no one really knows exactly what they're doing. We all just kind of week to week going through it and we just try and build a framework. And as I say, I think sometimes we can be on podcasts, we can give advice, we can write blogs and say, you should do this, you should do that. This is what I do. But I never want anyone to think that I have it locked down. It's not perfect. It's a constant wave, up, down, up, down, up, down. But I try and stick to it. And maybe 6, 7 times out of 10, it works. Other 3 times, it's just batshit and it's crazy. But
I rename you right now. I rename you Sensei Luke.
Sensei Luke.
Sensei Luke.
I'll take it.
That is so good because when I was a freelancer, I was literally spending all my time doing client projects and trying to create social media content because that was easier.
Yeah.
I never actually thought about having dedicated days to development and marketing days. So if you're listening to this, good advice on something that you can try. All right. Let's talk about the business side of things. How do you structure your consultancy for scalability and success? Let's say most people are at 2K, 3K monthly revenue and they're trying to get to 5K. What does that process look like to make that jump, but in a way where you're not feeling burnt out and it's sustainable?
All right. So what I'm going to say is I want to rip up that question a little bit and I want to take apart the fact that you want to get to a certain goal, a month or a year or whatever that is. Shred it up, throw it away. My process for this is how many days you want to work a week. Ideally, in the dream situation, think about the holidays you want to go on. Think about your living expenses. Think about your business expenses. All of those things, consolidate them, and then add 10% on top And then while you're at it, why not throw in a bonus as well, like an annual bonus that you can give yourself upon good performance, right? As you would do in employment. So you want to take that number and you want to divide that effectively by 2 days a week, so 8. And that will then give you an idea as to what you need to charge in order to work 2 days a week. And then anything above that is a profitable bonus, right? So if we think about it this way, you're in a situation where you're no longer stressing about having to work 5 days a week to build and afford to live. If you work 2 days, if you get 2 days of work each week, 8 days a month, you're comfortable. And anything on top of that is a bonus. And that is how I like to think about pricing. I think that's incredibly important. You want to be able to build a career as a consultant, as someone who can work when they need to, rather than having to work 5 days a week, right? The whole beauty of going into this is the fact that you create your own rule book. There is no more 9 to 5 unless you decide there's a 9 to 5. There is no more 4 weeks of annual leave if that's what you want. Like, you build your lifestyle. So don't just think about a number. Think about the life you want to build and have some proper thought about it. If you've got kids, if you want to have kids, if you don't want to have kids, fine. But like, just think about that. And then that is an indication as to what you should be charging, and to live comfortably. Anything on top of that is just absolute bonus. And that is how I build my life and my career, is think about those costs, divide them by 8. And then that is my day rate effectively. Now to kind of retouch on, the thing that we kind of spoke about is don't like charging day rates, but that gives you an idea internally as to what you charge, right? So if you know a project's going to take you roughly 3 or 4 days to do, your day rate that you keep close to your chest times by the amount of days you think it's going to take, that's your project rate, that's your retainer. But yeah, that is a way that I like to build consulting. So I'm not in a situation where I feel like I need to work every single day. I know 2 days a week is what I need to maintain a good lifestyle. That way, rather than thinking of an arbitrary number of like, I want to hit 10K, I want to hit 5K, you're actually bringing in context as to how it is you want to live your life. Because there shouldn't be a goal that's a number. It should be a goal that is a lifestyle, right? And that's why, for me, I've consulted, because I want to create an environment where I can live like this, I can eat like this, I can take the wife out, I can go on holidays, and I've allowed myself to build in the life that I wanted, and then break that down to how I charge, rather than thinking about a number.
There shouldn't be a goal as a number, but a goal as a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Sensei Luke. Sensei Luke.
I'm taking that, man. I might get a little tattoo right here. Just be like, yeah, Chima says it's legit.
All right. On the back of that, let's talk pricing.
All right.
Pricing can be tricky. How did you approach pricing your services when you were just starting out versus now when you're all glowed up?
All glowed up. I'm going to take that. Honestly, Jim was fine with the compliments. All right. So for me, when I first started, I think I fell into the classic trap that a lot of consultants and other kind of freelancers do, which is charging per day, right? And
Never.
I did it, right? It's a thing. And it worked for a while. But the problem is that the issue with charging by the hour or by the day is that it's kind of like range anxiety in an electric car, right? You've got this many miles and you need to charge after that. So people start to think about, did that really take you 3 hours? Are you sure that's going to take you 2 days? Right? And you start to kind of almost get this head over your shoulder of someone checking on what you're doing. On top of that, as you get more efficient at something, why should you charge less? Like, if anything, it's the opposite way around. The more experienced you become, right? So there's a classic saying of like, a boiler engineer comes out and he just taps his screwdriver on the right thing and goes, yep, that's the problem. That'll be £1,000, please. And the customer says, are you going to charge me £1,000 for 5 minutes work? And he's like, well, listen, it's took me 30 years to understand how to do that. You'll pay me for the 30 years experience. So why did we do it in SEO where we charge by the day, by the hour? So the way that I charge now is based upon a combination of value and what I believe the project is going back to that previous point of like, this is what I need to charge per day in my head to support my lifestyle. Now, most often than not, the price that I see them paying based upon the value I can offer is higher than my lifestyle. And that's how I know I'm living within my means, right? If it ever flips over, I've got a bit too bougie and I need to just rebalance myself. But I think it's really important to understand that. And of course, when you're on the calls, ask for a budget. You might not always get one, but ask the question. And then, if someone says to you 2K and you're thinking 5, maybe that's not good for you. But equally, if someone's saying 5 and you're thinking 4, it's a perfect fit. But just think about the value. don't beat yourself up and try and do the cheapest thing. And the last thing I'll mention on this is there is a really important thing of the psychology of price, which is if I said to you, I want an extension, or if you said to me, I want an extension, and I said to you, cool, it's going to cost you $5,000. You're like, I'm not going to go for that, guy. It's too cheap. And if I said to you, charge you $100,000, you've got to think that's way too expensive, depending on what the extension is. But if I said something reasonable in the middle, you're more likely to think about that. So don't cheapen yourself. Like, be at a point where you're giving the right value, you're not too cheap, and you're pricing yourself as an expert. And lastly on this, so I've got lots of advice on this, but lastly on this, there's a book by a gentleman called Tom Hurst. Go and read it. It's incredible.
A book by who?
Tom Hurst.
Called what?
So Tom Hurst is...
No, what's the title of the book?
I don't remember. But it's something about the pricing, freelance pricing.
Okay, cool.
Go and check that out.
Oh my God, I know who that is. He's on Twitter.
He's on Twitter.
He made this fantastic thread that went viral about pricing, and I really took some good tips from that.
It's incredible. It's
yes.
really, really
okay,
good.
Cool. Yeah. That's some really solid advice there, Luke. I'm hoping that anybody who's watching this is like taking notes and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this
notes.
now. Yeah. Hey, friends. One of the biggest hurdles in prospecting is sifting through mountains of data. You go in looking for quick information, but you end up spending hours to gain the full picture. Our new domain overview tool transforms mountains of data into a simple dashboard. With just a few clicks, you can see which keywords drive traffic, identify top pages with errors, and assess the overall digital health of any website. With Moz AI, prospecting is quick and straightforward. Save time with an AI-powered tool that delivers the precise information you need to make informed business decisions. All right, let's talk about public speaking. And I know it's a very important way to build personal branding.
Okay.
What role has public speaking has in your career, and how did you land your first speaking gig? This is to anybody who's trying to get on that speaking scene.
Yeah, getting into speaking is hard. I think, first of all, it's a mental battle more than it is a getting on stage battle, because you constantly compare yourself to other seasoned speakers who have been doing it for years, right? And you think, am I good enough? Is my content going to be any good? And you have a lot of sort of self-doubt. But I think really it's about telling a story. And I think even if you go on stage and talk about your journey to date, I think that's an incredible thing. It doesn't always have to be, let me prove to everyone in the room that I'm the smartest at X. It can just be, I started as this, I worked in sales, here I am now, here's the things that I learned. Or I've worked at a really cool brand for a couple of years, let me talk about my journey. For me, one of the things that I love talking about is how I built an incredible in-house team. Right. And that's got nothing to do with SEO and rankings and all these metrics and acronyms we all use. It's just a true, pure story about growth from my personal perspective. People want to hear that stuff.
Storytelling. People always want to hear a story because it's relatable, it's memorable.
Yeah.
And you can always find one thing from that story that you can take and make your life easier.
Yeah. And then to answer kind of how I got my first gig, it was actually Stephen Kenwright, interestingly enough.
Stephen Kenwright from Rise at 7.
From Rise. This was pre-Rise days. This was before Rise had even happened. So going back quite a handful of years now. And he had a speaker drop out at Search Leeds. The conference doesn't really happen anymore. And he said, look, we've got 72 hours. Speakers dropped out. Can anyone take this slot? And I DM'd Stephen, and I said, look, why not? I'm just going to throw something out there. And he said yes. Next thing you know, a week later, I was on stage speaking at Search Leeds about, I think, discontinued products. And then actually where it kind of went to the next level for me is there was an opportunity to pitch for Search Love. And I stood in the middle of somewhere in central London with my phone out like this. And I just said, hey, if I can record a video in the middle of central London talking to you with all this charisma, imagine what I could do on stage, right? And I just did that. And I sent it. And then a week later, I had an email from Will at then Search Love, which was, we want you on stage. And that's how I did it.
Amazing.
So just find ways
Bags
to be
of
different.
Confidence.
A little bit. And every now and again, every now and again.
What tips can you offer for delivering impactful presentations that resonate with your audience?
All right. I love this. Treat every presentation like a conversation. Don't feel like you've got to present like you rigid slides. Just like how you and I are talking now. So the difference is it's an audience. But if and the one thing I will say is no one really ever remembers the slides. They only really remember the conversation or the presentation you did and what you said. So when I first started speaking, I spent so much of my time and energy thinking about how the slides look, how things are going to be on the slide, right? How things are going to be laid out and all this sort of stuff. Now, I just don't care because it's too stressful in my head to think about that. I just think single bit of text, clean fonts, nice big images if I'm using them, and that is it. And actually, it's all about the delivery of what I want to say. But I treat my slides as cue cards, and I talk as if I'm having a conversation. I like to ask questions. I like to pop a few jokes, and that helps me personally to feel more comfortable.
Me too.
But yeah, I think it's just about, again, going back to telling a story. Don't see it as almost like a school project of presenting your findings. It's just like, hey, have you ever, start with a relatable point and then just talk, man. People always, as you said, people always want to hear stories. So everyone's biggest fear in this is that it's going to flop, right? It's going to be like an 8th Mile situation and people are just going to be booing you off stage. Like, I can't think of a single SEO or any marketing conference where that has been a thing, unless you say something absolutely ridiculous and offensive, like whatever. But my point is, that's probably not what's going to happen. All of our fears and worries about being on the stage are normally in our head. And there's definitely been times where I've stepped off the stage and I thought, oh man, I forgot this really important point. But the only person who knows that is me, right? Everybody else has kind of said, you know what? You said something that was really important there. I really enjoyed that. So just get out your own head, tell a story, relax, be comfortable. Don't plan too hard because it's not it's not a scripted performance. And just talk and just lean into your experience, what it is you want to say, and relax. But what I would say lastly is start at grassroots. Like go to a nice, cool meetup where there's it's a small kind of pub vibe. It's conversational. I find those small, intimate ones way more engaging because you can see people's faces. You can try things out, just like the comedians do on the circuits. So go to your local meetup. If you're in London, if you're in Birmingham, wherever you are in the world, go to your local one, pitch to speak, try something for 20 minutes and just build your confidence.
I agree. And if you're looking for like first-time places to pitch, Brighton SEO is always like taking first-time speakers, and something more local. If you live like in London or even anywhere in the UK, you can easily find your way to London. There's like search London. There's the monthly London SEO meetups. Yeah. There's just so many meetups, smaller meetups with like maybe 100 people that you can start with, build your confidence, and then just move on up from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff lastly in Ireland as well. So Belfast.
I saw that one recently.
Some incredible ones up there. So go and check out those as well.
All right. So one thing that many consultants and even freelancers struggle with is nailing sales calls. What advice can you give for crushing sales calls?
Yeah, so I'm in a fortunate position where my career or my first ever real proper job after my paper round was in sales, or as I said, worked at Careers. So talking to customers is really important. And I had a good amount of sales training. But one of the things that's incredibly important when it comes to sales is listen, right? Ask questions and listen, and stop being in a situation where you immediately want to prove to the potential client that you're the best person for the role, right? Whether that's even if this is applicable, even for if you're applying for a job, right? Just listen. So the key questions are like, what is it you've done to date? What are your key pain points? What does the leadership care about? What gaps do you believe you have in the business right now in terms of like skill set or expertise? Do you struggle with resource? How's developers like, right? All of those questions, and just listen and just let them go off. And obviously questions will come from those questions. And then take the information away, highlight the key pain points that they're spoken about or the things that they are really interested in, and come back and talk to as many of those as you can. And that's how you win. Like, you don't win by saying, well, I'm the best at this and I've got 15 years experience in that and I've driven this much money and that. Like, those things are important, but like everybody does it. And with all due respect, agencies are incredible at doing that, which is like, we've helped this many clients and we have this many employees and we operate across these many offices. Like, great, man, but I don't care. All that says to me is it's going to be more expensive. I just want to know how you can fix my specific problem. So ask questions, listen, and then talk to those points. And that goes whether you're selling a washing machine, to be honest, or SEO.
Yeah, I think one thing that I used to do as a freelancer was that I would show the client or the potential clients what the solution would look like. So if they were coming to me for like, let's say topic clusters or strategy, I would pull up something I had done with another client very similar to their business. I'll show them what I did, what the result looked like. And then that way, you just like hook them in. And because they can start to visualize themselves in that solution, you have them right there. So listen, use the problems that they've given you to reverse engineer, and then use that to show them what the solution look like. At least that's what I would do. Hey friend, if you stuck around this far, I'll take it you're enjoying the podcast. Please hit the like button to show your support, subscribe to stay in the loop, and click the bell button to get notified when we release a new episode. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about work-life balance. As a consultant, Mondays are Saturdays and Sundays are Tuesdays. How do you manage the demands of being a consultant while ensuring that you take after Luke, or you take care of Luke rather?
take care of myself.
Yes.
All right. So this skin ain't an accident. No, I'm joking. This is one of the key reasons why I went into consulting, and it is a real easy thing to let go of, but also incredibly important to me that I take care of, which is, as you said, work-life balance. You have to understand where your limits are. So for me, I have a golden rule where I don't work Fridays. As much, there are obviously, again, exceptions to this. Sometimes a site launch is absolutely shit itself and you've got to jump on it. But like, as best as I can, Fridays, I try my best not to work. And I mentioned earlier about using some of that time to self, learn and find new things. But equally, I have 3 days where I like do work. Sometimes stretching to 4, but I try my best to always have Fridays off. And the reason why is because I have to think about what I am effectively my work. And if I don't look after myself and my mental health, and I don't kind of to get the things that I need to get, then I can't serve my clients properly. So I know after lots of practicing and being at both ends of the extreme, not enough work and too much work, that is my routine. And if I don't adhere to it, then I'm shit. I'm not offering the best possible value for clients. The second reason is, and probably again, the paramount reason is my family. Like for me, kids grow up too quick. You don't get those years back. And I remember being incredibly sick some years ago and actually died and got brought back to life. But the point is, I had some incredible conversations with some old gentlemen in the hospital. And I asked them, what was the biggest thing that you regret in your life? And they all individually kind of said to me, not spending enough time with family. And I think if 3 consecutive elderly gentlemen who have lived incredible lives can say that, that has got to mean something. So your consultancy, your agency, your work, your employment, whatever it is, has to supplement the life that you want to live, not the opposite way around. But yeah, 2 kids, a wife, wanting to make sure that I leave this planet in the most fulfilled person I can. That is my why. And everything else just has to work around that. There's no compromise.
I love that. What is one thing you do every day that brings you a tiny pocket of joy?
So this is a really good question, actually. There's quite a few things. And I realize actually how much I take care of myself, which is wonderful. But the one thing that I love to do is walk. Me and the wife and the family moved to the countryside and to allow us to do that. So we live in a place where there's incredible walks. And when I'm struggling with something, if, sometimes you can't get your head straight, sometimes you're in a situation where you've got a problem, you just can't fix it, go and take a 20-minute walk. And for me, that really, really helps. And also to eat good. I work at home full time and I always try and cook something special like eggs and avocado or, some maybe just something a little special. I'm not the kind of person who likes to pick up meal deals too often. I work at home, got a whole kitchen. I've got the kitchen to myself most of the time. I'm going to enjoy my food, man,
I love how great your life is. And it seems like you've been so intentional about building that life for yourself. So well done, Luke.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this episode. Thank you for coming on. That was incredible.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today on MozPod. Don't forget to use the hashtag MozPod to share anything you found interesting on today's episode with Luke Carthy. This episode was engineered by Saul Fox, produced by Chima Major and Joe Cameron, and our YouTube footage was filmed and edited by Sarah Galpin. Remember, curiosity did not kill the cat. It just improved the search rankings. Bye-bye.